let me take you through the a little bit of the punch list process and how we could take it paperless. I've done some of that over the years, not paperless in construction administration. As an architect, you may end up doing it as a contractor as well. What I'm going to show you again are tool sets and basically punch list abbreviations that we can place on our drawings. I'm not going to do so much about capturing images and video from the field, but I will show you how to do that. Obviously, it would help if I were out in the field, but I'll show you where that is. I'll also explain spaces and how you can use spaces in your markup list to congregate different markups and be able to sort by space. We'll also talk about custom statuses that you can create and custom columns to make markups a little bit easier to use. Again, I'll show you how to use Studio Sessions, or at least introduce you to Studio Sessions so that you can post these to the web. And then if someone is in the field, either with a tablet, be it a Windows tablet preferred or a iPad, the application there has the features in it that they're a little bit more limited. You can certainly walk and do a punch list with that. The Studio, again, has two sections. The Sessions section would allow online collaboration. So if someone were out in the field and doing a punch and you wanted to see where they were or what they were marking up, you could actually follow them. And a project, you could put the entire project online, including all the PDFs and any other kind of file, including spreadsheets. Excuse me, so that people could check them in and check them out as needed. If you haven't seen 2018 or aren't working with it, again, it's going to look very different from previous releases. So there's a bit of a simplified navigation. The command bar at the top is gone. You don't always have to open the properties window. There's now a dynamic properties toolbar at the top of the screen. The view product is gone, but there are view and markup modes. So you download the product. If you don't have a license, you can switch over to view mode. The markup summary dialog box is a bit different than previous releases. Much more flexibility with Studio projects being able to open files from multiple projects or upload, and while things are uploading, be able to work as well. In this release, you can actually customize your keyboard shortcuts, so that was nice. And when you first start the product, there are review tutorials. They're still there under the help menu. Okay, sip of water and we'll continue. So the punch list process typically involves, again, my apologies, going out in the field and doing these markups on a plan. And sometimes it's a set of drawings that have been printed out, a full set, maybe folded up, maybe you've made copies of individual rooms. Those have to get transferred over to a spreadsheet, and it's a manual and tedious process. You have to walk the job site, you have a bunch of drawings, hopefully you don't lose any in the process, and then those markups have to be transferred back to Excel. Many offices have a list of standardized abbreviations, and so you would be writing these down on your pieces of paper. You can use these same abbreviations as tools in tool sets. This is going to be a long webinar. Sorry about that. So we have standardized punch list legends. Again, you would use these as you walk the job site. Here might be a little 8.5-11 piece of paper where you've enlarged a room, and you will start putting your markups on there. Again, once you put those on there manually, you make note of the changes, you make note of corrections that are needed, and then that has to be transferred over to Excel. Maybe who's responsible for that change? Are there costs associated with it, and what the status is? And is it completed? Okay, so let me take you into a floor plan. So this could be really anything, a dorm, a hotel, it could be an apartment complex, whatever you would like to envision it as. And it's on a 30 by 42 piece of paper. So if we were to start to add our punch list to this, it would add way too much information. And so what we might like to do is capture either individual rooms or perhaps areas that we could then begin to mark up. So for instance, let's say we're doing a punch and we might like to capture these 4 rooms over here as something that we would place on an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper. So if I expand over here on the left, my thumbnails will see on the current drawing that I'm in, and I'm going to show you how to add a sheet to this. Again, you can pre-create a punch list template. So I have done that, and when I come over here into the thumbnail section, I can right-click, and I can choose to insert a blank page. Now, from that list at the top, I have a drop-down, and I created a PDF and then saved it into the folder, and I called it punch list template. So I'll go ahead and pick that, and I'm going to just create one page for now, but again, you could create multiple pages, and I'll place it after the current page. So I'll put it after the first page or after page 1. And it always zooms out into the middle of nowhere. So I will zoom extents by double clicking the mouse. Now what I did is I put on, just did a screen capture and did a company logo, which you can do. I then had some plain text, and I also have some editable fields. So that is not an editable field. That is an editable field, okay? So let's go back to the original sheet, and we'll go through the process now of capturing this. So you can capture it in a couple of different places. I believe under Edit, you have Snapshot. You can use the letter G, or over here on the right side of the screen, I have my Snapshot tool. By the way, I am in, from the Review pull down at the top, excuse me, profiles. There are 4 profiles that ship: Review, Review Advanced, Quantity Takeoff, and Field Issues. Of course, you can create your own interface. I'm in the Field Issues profile at the moment. So mine may look a little different than your screen if you're not using this one. Anyway, you can use that snapshot tool and you can capture an area. So I'll start holding down my drag, and I now have a snapshot. I can go over to this page and I can right click and I can paste that in. Make it a little bit smaller. And there we go. So we could now at this point come in and say what our building type is. Excuse me. So let me see if I can get this guy to edit. So maybe this is a dorm. Oops, got my caps lock on. And I could come over here and say room names, and these could be 1240 through 1243. And you get the idea. So I can go through and edit the information. You want to get all of this edited before you do anything else, because once we have this all set, what we want to do is freeze this information. And we don't want anyone to be able to change the information or the date or move things around or delete them on the page, because that will affect the punch list information that we are going to transfer to Excel. Now, at the bottom of the screen, you'll see over here on the far left is our little markup list button. When I click on that, you'll see all of the markups that are currently on the sheet. So there is the snapshot I placed on the sheet and then all the text boxes. And I clearly do not need those or want those as part of my punch list. So what I will do is I will right click on the icon in the thumbnail list, and I'll choose flatten. Now you have a bunch of options here. You could also allow for markup recovery if you want. I'm just going to go ahead and choose flatten. And once I do that, my apologies for coughing so much. You'll notice that the markup list is now empty. Okay, so that's perfect. That's exactly what I want. Now, the next step might be that I would like to organize my punches into 4 spaces, maybe a space for 1240, 1241, 1242, and 1243. So let me show you how to do a couple of those anyway. If we look in the markup list, you have a bunch of columns that you can have listed. And these columns are from the markup list, and there's a column list. And you can go through and choose which ones that are standard or ones that you've created. And for some reason, it didn't take my change from earlier, put the word responsibility back in twice. And you can also create custom columns from the manage button, right? So I had changed this to something else. I forget exactly what I had changed it to, but I'll change it to something else just so we can see that it's possible to edit that if I could actually type. So now that column is called reply, and it loves switching things around on me. Okay, so I'm going to move the space back over to here. So space would allow, any one of these will allow me to do sorting. So let me show you how to add a space. Spaces can be added a couple of different ways. There is a space tool over here on the right-hand side of the screen. You can also use the space tool here to open up the palette on the left for spaces. So I'll use the one on the left. And at the top, there's a couple of different icons. There is a highlighting of a space. You can turn highlighting on and off. You can add a space or edit a space. So again, I'll zoom in on room 1240, and I'll click on space. Now, again, you can pick a bunch of points and make it as complex as you like, or you can just drag a rectangle down and through and create your space. So I'll call that space 1240. Okay. Now I can come back down here and create another space. So I'll come over here, and that gets numbered 1241. And I'll go ahead and stop. So you just get the sense of how that works. Now you can have them show or not by putting these colors in. And if we look in the markup list, we should have spaces, but they're not going to be listed because there are no markups in here yet, okay? So those spaces will come into play when we're ready to do some markups. So let's take a look at how we go ahead and do that. Okay, so the punch list process will involve using tool sets over here on the left. These are tool sets that come pre-shipped with the software, and you can easily add to them. So at this point, we have a couple at the top, which are your personal tools that you can store, that you can use over and over again. The last few tools you used are listed under recent. And then we have all of these punch list items. So we have carpentry down through plumbing issues. There's lighting issues, but maybe you would like to have another section called glazing issues, for example. So you could always create a new tool set from the tool chest dropdown. You could choose manage tool sets. And you could always add a new tool set here if you wanted to. You could simply choose add and choose the one you want. You can also choose which of your profiles you would like that to show up in. Okay. And again, these would be your standard tools. So maybe here's trim base isn't good on this wall here, so I'll place that. Maybe I have an electrical issue. There's some exposed wires over here on this wall. Maybe I have a plumbing issue. I might have a leaky faucet. And if we come down and look in our list, you'll notice now that the space is listed with those particular items, okay? So if I come down to space 1241 or room 1241, take a look at some other things. For instance, and it might be the wrong wall light in this bathroom. There might be a uneven surface of paint over on this wall here. And what else we got? How about a carpentry issue? Door magnet stop not working, needs to be adjusted. Okay. If I come down to my markup list, we'll now see those, right? Now, what it's doing at this point is it is sorting by subject. So if we look at these individual tools that we've placed, for instance, this one here, if I look at the properties for that, you'll notice that there's a subject called painting, and then there's some text. So right now, we are sorting by subject at the bottom. But you could also pretty easily just click on space and now sort by space. So now you can see all the punch list items for space 1240 versus space 1241. There are other things that you could do with these. For example, this particular one, 1240, and it takes me right to that, has a status available. And you can set up a variety of different statuses. For example, I have a review status. I also have an issues status. So manage status allows you to create multiple models. And within those models, you can have different states. So for instance, if this carpentry issue at this point is needs to be, well, I don't want to do that one, issue. It's an open issue right now. Maybe I want to assign a responsibility to that. Well, for a responsibility, if I double click there, there's a drop-down list of names, and you'll notice 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, if I come to the next item down, electrical, notice there 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So why does one level of responsibilities have more than the other? Well, again, if I look at my columns and I look at my custom columns for responsibility, those are a choice. And notice what I've done is I've set up all of the people who might be responsible for the repair. And based on the subject, which is what the tool is basically using, I can limit who has responsibility for what. So M. Smith has responsibility for electrical, and M. Smith won't show up in anything not electrical. These other people that don't have specific subjects assigned will appear in any of the subjects, okay? So you have that kind of control as well. Okay, let's say you have something custom you want. So, for example, I might like to have something called, excuse me, cleaning the glass. So I might go ahead and drop one of these guys in. Just go ahead and choose anything at all. I'll drop this in here. And now I would like to edit that particular tool. So I will select it, double click, and put in CG for clean glass. And I will change the subject to glazing. And I will change the text. See if I can get out of that. I got that, glazing, and it is not letting me edit it. I don't know why. Here we go. See, there we go. And I would like that to be clean glass. And see if we can get rid of the rest of it. It's just fighting me today. Okay, so now I have that as cleaning the glass, okay? So it's glazing and clean glass. So now I might like to have that in my tool chest, right? So I've got electrical, flooring, paint issues, plumbing issues. Maybe I would like to put this in a tool chest. So I can right click and say add to tool chest. Well, here are all the tool chests that are in there. Maybe I'd like to create another one for glazing. So again, excuse me, you can do that from the drop down at the top to do that. But I'll just go ahead and place it under what kind of issues right now. I'll put it under flooring issues. So I'll just put it, actually, you know what? I'll just drop it under paint issues. So I'll go ahead and add to tool chest, and I'll put it in paint issues, right? So now I have that. I also have another one here. Maybe I don't want it in there, and I could delete that from a tool chest. So I now have clean glass. I could now place that in my other room as well up here. And now if I go to my markup list and I do it based on subject, you'll notice I'll have two listed as glazing, okay? It's a pretty simple process to put those on the sheet, create a custom one, add spaces and custom columns, okay? So now that we've walked around and done the punching, let me go ahead and just save this file. How might we be able to transfer this information into Excel? So the way we can do something like that for Excel is that we can come along and we can choose our output from here. So I can choose from the drop down at the top, CSV summary, an XML summary, a couple of others that wouldn't be for bringing into Excel. But let me choose the XML summary, for example. What I'll do is I will tell it where I would like it to go. And I would tell it the name of the file that I might want. So maybe I want to call it Punchlists. And again, you have lots of different choices, what you want to include or not include. You can filter and sort. You can choose which columns you want and which columns you don't. So right now, reply is empty. Maybe I don't want to include that particular column. You can save this and use it over and over again. I'll go ahead. I'm also going to tell it to not open the file after creation. So it should go ahead and create that file. I'll now open up Excel. And trust me, I am a total Excel for Dummies person. So here's my Excel spreadsheet. I will write, I'll choose a particular field. Now again, you can have your Office standard Excel takeoff list, and you can pull the data in there. So speaking of data, we'll come over. So I'm going to pull in an XML file. I can go out and find that file on my computer. Go down to the sales demo. And there's my punch list XML. Now, I'll choose the import. In the dialog box, what I'll do is I'll choose edit. I will expand markup. And I will not use the original column headings. So there we go. And I'll go ahead and just click on close this. It says to keep it. And I will now pull all that data in. Right? So now I've pulled all of that spreadsheet data in, and we are good to go. Okay. We could sort, again, you can choose how you would like to sort. So maybe I would like to sort, don't know if that works, A to Z. Oh, there we go. Good. Excellent. So 1240 is it sorted. And then there's room 1241. I could even right click here, I think, and insert a row. Is that what would happen? There we go. Okay. So maybe I'm not a total dummy in Excel, but there you go. So you now got your information transferred over to Excel from your file. Okay, so I'm going to close this down, not save. Okay, so the next thing is we're kind of doing this on my computer, but let's say we want to be able to do this out in the field, and instead of accessing it from your server in your office, maybe you'd like to be able to access this online. So let me go ahead and save this again. I must have saved it already. So on the bottom, on the left, is Bluebeam Studio. Now, I've already signed in, and Bluebeam Studio has two groupings. There are sessions, and there are projects. Sessions are for online collaboration, which means that we can share up to 5,000 drawings or 5,000 PDFs with up to 500 people at a time. We can also have projects. Now, projects are a little more complex. Projects are any kind of file, but it's kind of like an FTP site or Dropbox that once you open a file, everyone else is locked out of it. So it's not really for sharing information. Sessions are for sharing. Now, we can create a new session. If I say create a new session, I could call it Punchlists. So there's, here we go. So here's Punchlist demo, and I could invite attendees, or I could simply, if you have the product, you could simply log into that particular section. You have the ability to add email addresses. You can create groups. You can also set up permissions. Again, you can have up to 500 attendees. Now, we have a session. We might want to upload a file into that particular session. So I have documents at this point. What I want to do is add a document. So I could click Add File, and I could choose, let's say, the file I'm in, which is the A2 Punchlist PDF. And that file is now uploaded, right? So that's now uploaded. I can close the file I'm in, and I will open that document, right? And that is now online, okay? So that studio session is now online, and as you make markups in here, so you'll see there's some information there. If I come over to here and other people are in here and working, if they start to put other kinds of items in, as I go back to session, you'll notice that those items have been added to the list. Pardon me. Now, if there are multiple people in the session, they will be listed up here under the attendees. And you have the ability to follow anyone who is in that session, or I can ask people to follow me. So if someone is out in the field marking this up, I can see that they are in my session. They've opened one of these files in that session, or they've opened up one of the pages in that file. I can then choose to follow them, so I can actually see where they are going. Now, if you were out in the field and you need to take a, we can go ahead and continue. Click continue to access control. And I'm not sure, it's Dan. So Dan's going to join. So we'll go ahead and let Dan join, and we'll pick OK. So Dan is now in here, and we can see there is Dan. And there is a follow attendee. So I could click on follow the attendee, and I will now see whatever Dan is doing. So now Dan is kind of in control of what's going on, and we should see his cursor. So you should see this little arrow, these 4 arrows, as he moves around on the screen. You can see what Dan is doing. Now I can click again on that, and I can click again on Dan and uncheck. So, or let's see if I unfollow. Or can I? Let me go back to me. So now I'm not necessarily following Dan anymore, right? So I can have control back again. So you can see pretty easily, you can do that. And I can again see that Dan has put some markups in. Now I can click on Dan's markup, and I can see exactly where that markup is, okay? So it's pretty easy to do this sort of online collaboration. The next step involved in this might be that, okay, we would like to now get a report on what transpired during this particular session. See if we've got anything going on in here. Okay, so we might want to see a report on everything that transpired during this particular session. So down here at the bottom, we have a button, which is the report button. Now, the report button that's down here generates this dialog box, right? And we can create a record summary. I'm going to look at getting a PDF package summary. I can include a attendees list, and I can include all of these fields. I can set it to portrait or landscape, and I can give it a title. I'll go ahead and pick OK. It'll ask me where I would like to save that to. I'll go ahead and save it, and now I have a readout of everything that took place in that particular session. So if I double click on documents, we can see the documents that were in there. I'll click on home, and I can click on report or not. So there's my report. Now, what's nice about the report is that the report is hyperlinked to that document that downloaded. So I can click on something that Dan put in, and it'll take me right to that. So it's a big advantage to be able to kind of do this sort of out in the field on your laptop or on your iPad or tablet. Now, another thing that we can do, let me close this and close the report and this. So back in the drawing, again, let's say I go back to this room here, and we've noticed that there's an electrical wiring issue. Now, you could do a couple of different things. So one of the things you could do is over here, if you have a camera available, you could take a screen capture or even a video. Now, my screen capture is going to bring up the camera on my machine, and it could get kind of ugly, but I'm not quite sure what I look like today. But I'll click on that, and there's the camera, and there I am, right? So there I am, and I go ahead and click capture. So I capture that, and it says, do I want to use that? And I'll choose use that. So now there I am, right? So that might not be exactly what I wanted to capture, but you have that available, so you can capture it right in the field. You also have the ability to have photographs that you've got already that you might want to place in the file. So that would be the image tool over here on the right. And the image tool, if I click on that, will allow me to go out and find a folder on my system where I've saved these images. So here's an electrical panel. Here's another electrical panel. I might go ahead and choose to place this. Now, the trick for this is that you don't want to just click, but you want to click and drag, and you can control the size then of that image. That image afterwards, if I right-click on it, I should have a crop tool. So there's my crop image, and I could now come back and crop it down to just what I want, okay? So you can capture that as well. Now, again, this is still in that online session. So if I go back here, it kept track of everything. It kept track of me deleting an image, placing an image in. I mean, it doesn't let you get away with anything, right? So as soon as you do anything in here, it's going to get captured. And again, when you are finished, you have a couple of choices. You can either end a session. So I could come up to the sessions at the top, and I could choose to end that particular session. So let's see if I can get back up. So here's a punch list demo. So I could choose to end the session, or let's say I can choose to finish the session, rather. That will close it down, archive everything, and basically remove it off of the web. Or if you want, you can go ahead and choose to leave a session. Notifications, nothing there. Pending, nothing there. Again, if you went out into the field to make a markup, let's say you're in the trailer and you need to go out in the field, you could always disconnect from a session. I'm now disconnected. I could come over to here. I'm out in the field with my iPad or my tablet. I come down to my tools. I go ahead and pick another tool, make a placement. You'll notice when I come back here to sessions, under pending, that's going to be waiting. As soon as I come back up here and click to reconnect, that goes away, and that record was now added. Okay. If I'd like to keep this open for future access, I can do that, and I can simply leave the session, and I've left that session. I don't have any drawings open, so I'll come back over here and open up that file that I had earlier.